What's up, everybody? How you guys doing? This is Jim right here on HotMakes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Edge of Tech. Pooch, how you doing?
I'm doing good, and it's really hard to hear you there, Starlord, inside your mask. You gotta get a built-in microphone or something like that, you know?
No.
Oh, lights, nice. That's a good one. That's a recent make.
This right here,
Yeah.
since you weren't on last night when I was live,
Yeah.
is a Matthew Nicholas original.
Oh yeah.
He
What's
hooked
going on with the top?
he hooked the brother up. That's how the helmet is.
Oh, okay.
So that's how his real helmet is. But
it just goes over his face because his hair is like.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's got short hair. I was gonna try to get my hair through it, so it was like metal version.
Right.
But the problem is, I put it on and realized I can't see because I take my glasses off, and I didn't put us in the stream. So I took it off, put us in the stream, and then I turned on the lights and I couldn't see the countdown. So I was just listening, like, I hope it works.
Yeah.
But but yeah, this straight from Matthew Nicholas. He sent me over a whole outfit, like a whole costume or a cosplay outfit, man.
You got the whole Starlord outfit? That's amazing.
Yeah. So it came with the boots and it came with real quick. Let's see. It came with the blasters.
Oh wow! What?
Huh?
Man, you got hooked up. That's amazing.
So these are the Nerf blasters they came out with long ago, and he actually redecorated them. You know,
Enhanced.
Enhance it, and they actually fire Nerf darts.
Yeah.
So I might have to work with our good friends and get these things pumped up. I wonder if I could do that.
I'll bet you could.
It also has boots, and literally he sewed a full length coat, tails and all.
Wow.
And I won't pull that out right now because I'd have to stand up, and it's full length. But how you doing, man? It's been a week.
I'm good. Yeah, a lot changing, a lot happening in a week. I have been looking forward to this episode for a long time. We got the HotMakes exclusive here tonight.
We do.
Right? Yeah.
HotMakes exclusive breaking news, as I put out there today. Breaking news.
Yep.
So I'm just glad someone didn't respond with fake news. I mean,
yeah. Well, somebody somewhere. But man, we were really excited. We got Clockspring with us tonight. Mr. I just learned his first name today. It's Sven. Didn't know that. That's good. I've been calling him Mr. Spring, so I'm sure he prefers less formal titles. We'll get. But Jim, are we gonna? I mean, the guy is a hot make unto himself.
He is.
And we're letting these hot makes pile up here from last because we had Verf episode last week and all that stuff. So we're gonna have to hit the hot makes hard next week.
I did grab some for tonight. If we don't get to them, we'll push them off till next week. But I grabbed some. I grabbed some up till last week. So I didn't grab anything in the last week
because you guys keep submitting all this awesome stuff, and we want to be able to show up. And hey, you know what? We'll get Sven's opinion. We'll see what Clockspring thinks about all this great stuff you guys are. You will have your hot make appraised by the master, right?
There you go. And Chris Gareeds, how you doing out there? Yes, sweet, as I would say. Just a quick heads up, contest-wise, we are just a couple days over halfway there, and we are about halfway to the goal of giving away 2 printers, which is amazing. I almost swore. So, well, we got, in the last, what is it? What's today? 19 days. We did 2,277 subscribers. So, we're at 17,277 on the old YouTube channel. And if we get to 18,000, we add that other printer in. So push hard. Let's get that shared to everybody. Don't worry with yesterday during last night's stream. And there's only like 1,200 entries. So, so of all those people, only like 1,200 people entered. So, hey,
half of them are bots. So,
that's okay.
Bots can't win.
Shh, don't tell anybody. No. So there's that. Otherwise, you know what? It's time to bring them in because we've been
bring them in.
We've been pumped up for this episode. I mean, everybody out there loves his stuff. Steven the Lightspeed prints some incredible stuff. That's how I started seeing. I was like, "What is this? This is magic." And
wizardry is this.
It is time. So, ladies and gentlemen, to my knowledge, the very first time he's been interviewed like this on any stream, exclusive to HotMakes. Ladies and gentlemen, Sven from Clockspring. How you doing?
I'm very well. I'm not sure I can really follow that Starlord outfit though. That's a high bar.
Oh my gosh, isn't that incredible? I don't know if you follow Matt on Twitter, Sven, but he is just next level, and he is fast. He produces just amazing stuff.
See, I thought the mask was good, but then Nerf blasters?
I know.
How do you compete with that? That's just insane.
And then
that's too cool. Yeah, that was the point where that's too good.
Well, listen, welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
welcome.
you for having us. So we're blessed to have you. Like you haven't gotten to do anything like this. I mean, I would think that everybody be wanting to talk to you.
I am absolutely terrible at actually following up with those sorts of things. It's like, we should do this soon. I'm just going to do some other work first, and then 6 months later, and So thank you for persisting and being patient.
No problem.
We have Jim that hounds everybody to get us on.
I do, but the thing is, I was gonna say you put out like 15 models a week, so I understand. I'm just.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. I am so terrible with socials in particular, just because it takes there's only so many hours in the day, and it's always more interesting to go design something new. So. Which is why I tend to release a bunch of things at the same time, because that's when I get around to actually taking photos and things like that. So, yeah. Anyway, time management.
You do a pretty good job with the socials. I mean, and honestly, is this actually your? Do you have another job you do on top of this, or do you? Okay.
Yeah, no. I'm a I came to UX design out of software development, so I've always been a fairly technical guy, but with a creative leaning. So I've certainly always been a fan of typography and 3D design. I was trying to find my old 90s Atari ST manual for CAD 3D 2.0, but just to bring that out, nostalgia. But it's in a box somewhere. So I'm still slightly awed that we have 3D printers. I grew up with 3D software, making stuff, and I'd be a kid, making 3D spaceships and things. And the idea that you can actually realize this physically is still just mind blowing. It still feels like it's just too good to be true.
It's such a great tool, and I gotta tell you, you exploit its abilities to the max, given that you do a lot of print in place and a lot of things that really show off what 3D printing can do that you cannot achieve with injection molding or other techniques.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the fun part. It's this tool for, let's call it, creative exploration. See, it used to really bug me. You don't see this too much anymore, but every article was like, how can you make money with a 3D printer? And it was always around, how do you justify buying a 3D printer financially, which was totally counterproductive from a creative point of view, because suddenly you think, am I going to go buy this water-soluble filament? How am I going to justify this financially? And it's such a hindrance. So at least these days, I guess everything's so much cheaper, and you don't see those sorts of things. But printers are just such a great creative tool, and it's really easy to lose sight of that and think, what can I do that's practical, and lose sight of the fact that they're just such a great artistic tool as well. So anyway, that's my rant about that sort of thing.
Well, that kind of brings me to how did you get started? I mean, in modeling, you said programming, right? But when did you sit down and say, I'm going to make stuff that prints in place with not really any supports, that has gears, that is super complex, but I'm gonna make it decent to print? I mean, there was
one model.
Go through there?
Yeah, no, totally. The thing that really kicked that off was, I thought one day, how can I print a box with a lid that's hinged and have it print in place? And I think the one, I can't remember what I called it, but it was one that we printed on its edge, and so everything was in contact, and it was a bit precarious to print, but it was one of these things where, and the hinges were on weird angles, and it was all very complicated. But it was the first one where it's like, okay, so this is possible. And then, a month later, I had 3 vastly more robust printable versions of the same thing. But it's just this process of, I guess, building your own vocabulary, being able to, pull in these various approaches and ideas. But yeah, it absolutely started with that one particular box, and it was just a challenge. Can I do this? And that's what a lot of my stuff tends to be. Just me going, this sounds dumb. I wonder if I can make it work.
Well, you've come up. So now, how many things have you released now to the public? Because I'm imagining when you first started, you didn't do Patreon, right? You were just kind of doing it, and then you did it.
No. And so I for years I was mostly putting stuff up on my mini factory.
Right.
I had stuff on Thingiverse as well, but my mini factory was a very supportive platform, and so I think there's a few hundred on there. And then I've lost track. I don't keep count, but there's been quite a lot on Patreon as well. But it's what I do with my time, really. If I'm not, doing my other job or sleeping, it's 3D printing is absolutely a full-time job, hours-wise. But really, because it's more fun to do that than go to sleep when I should. So,
well,
a lot of my releases are like 2 a.m. my time, just because I don't want to stop.
You're in Australia. Are you near Sydney? Where in Australia?
Brisbane. So yeah, we're an hour different daylight savings, but same kind of longitude as Sydney, more or less. So, which is why I've got my coffee here.
Yeah,
right. I love it. So we did have a quick question. The big question is, what is the formula for print in place? If you can see it on your screen there, but is there a formula or is it just trial and error?
No, well, it's both.
both.
And so the simple answer is just leave a gap that's appropriate. So I use 0.5 millimeters between any matching surfaces, but you can, with most printers, you can probably go less than that, but I try to make things easily printable across a range of things. But trial and error is a thing, because there's a lot more complexity to things when, like, you have a tall feature and it'll start wobbling and vibrating, and suddenly that 0.5 isn't big enough and things start binding, or you're suddenly dealing with say elephant pudding on a print, and you think, well, can we now sort of trim the edges so that we can allow for that, because otherwise that 0.5 isn't big enough. And there's a lot of things that will work in a more conventional manufacturing approach that won't work in 3D printing because of things like friction. So, for example, I learned at one point that having tall cogs that try to turn ends up with things tilting and jamming, things like that. So, the easy answer is just leave a gap. The actual answer is test it and see what doesn't work, and do it again and again and again. Yeah, which is, that's the fantastic thing, though, right? Is that you can say, I wonder if this will work, and hit print, and even if it's a big print, it's still only a day or so. So, I've got something printing in the next room at the moment that I started yesterday, and I tweaked some things from its previous iteration, and it in the scheme of things, printing prototypes is not horribly expensive. It's not like traditional manufacturing. So, you just say, well, I wonder if this will fix that problem, or I wonder if this will cause a problem, and you can find out, which is, the most inspiring thing is that you can just try things, and it's so easy and it's so accessible, and it's,
So how many test prints average would you say a single block? Like for instance, the gray one will be to your left, right on the screen.
Yep.
How many tests do you think it took before you got the mechanism in there to work and the door to open and all that?
It's funny. It wouldn't have even been the mechanism on that. It would have been things like the positioning of the pins related to the box, because you've got your vertical tolerances as well. So I think by the time I did that one, the gear part probably all worked out fine, but it's all the other little things that completely destroy your print that need to be ironed out along the way. And there's some things that I think will just work first time. So I'll pull out the fancy filament and go, oh, this is going to be great. And then throw that in the bin. And
you do have the benefit, though, of having so many designs at this point where you kind of know what works and what doesn't work, where you can kind of pull components from one thing to another.
Absolutely. So things like, I did these parametric boxes with screw closures, and that was all kind of, I guess, done in my head, because this was OpenSCAD. So that was just done programmatically. And
wow,
I couldn't have done that if I didn't already, know how I was approaching that in something like Fusion. But, and so those things tend to just work. But then what have I got around here that might be a good example? There'll be other things like this, which is that water wheel thing I did a while back, where I went through a bunch of different iterations with different sized, planetary cogs and things, just to get past the effects of friction and how much weight the water needed to apply and things like that. That, those things are always unknowns. And I guess the problem is that I keep just trying new things. I mean, that's what interests me. So, I constantly run into new problems, and they're probably avoidable, but it's easy to just try things and see how it goes. And I go through a lot of filament.
So what is your CAD package of choice?
At the moment, it's Fusion. I guess the packages I use most are Fusion for most mechanical type things. I've always loved Tinkercad, and Tinkercad's where I got started. And I still recommend that just because it's just so quick and streamlined. OpenSCAD if I'm doing anything programmatic. And then I've got a bunch of kind of niche things like TopMod, which is a horribly crashy topological mod thing, which I love, but you're saving every 10 seconds because every chance the next operation is just going to kill the software. So there are probably some other niche things around. I mean, I use Illustrator as well if I'm doing vector stuff that I'm going to bring into a design, but there's just so much out there, and most of the packages will do the job for depending on what you're doing. It's just really a matter of you get used to a particular bit of software in the workflow and so on.
Yeah. Nice. So Sven, I don't know if you knew this or not, but you're the first Patreon person that I've ever actually been a patron of.
I feel special.
I'm usually more of a fan of just buying the stuff that interests me one-off, but you are so prolific and you are so on top of releasing on a regular basis that it's a phenomenal value. Frankly, I'd probably pay double. I mean, everybody's going to kick my butt for saying that for what you do, for what you release. But to switch gears slightly, there's a lot of people that they're watching that have been doing Patreon and whatnot, and I wonder what advice you have for them to leverage that system well, unique. You have a decent amount of patrons at this point.
And I think the key thing is just to be genuine and sincere about what you're doing. So and to have a reason why you're using Patreon. So I think just being yourself, it sounds like cliched advice, but I think making it clear what you're doing, why you're doing it, how Patreon will help you is probably the big thing there. Because I think the thing that is really easy to miss with something like Patreon is that it's an ongoing commitment. Just because when you start that sort of thing, you've got 10 backers or whatever, and so the support is limited, but you're still in a position where you're obliged to be delivering and doing your thing. So I think it's the sort of thing where you already want to have an established rhythm to what you're doing, and not just say, I'm going to start doing this, kick off Patreon, and then try to sustain it. It's like every podcast and YouTube channel that begins with great ideas and then runs out of steam after a couple of episodes because content ideas are an issue and so on. So I think Patreon is no different in that regard, except of course that you're committed to the people who are supporting you. So they're helping you out, and you need to to reflect that and respect that. So
that's a really good point. I think a lot of people, it's really easy to get excited about a good idea, but content is king on any of these channels. And
absolutely.
So if you don't have a plan to really, because it's a grind, like you said, as you're getting started, you have to commit, and before it really pays off, you have to show people and gain their trust. I think that you're going to stick with it, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so for me, when I moved into that, I made sure that I was releasing things on a regular basis, just that in the way I already had been. So just to make sure from my point of view that I could sustain that kind of stuff. And I think, that really just, I guess, took away a lot of that anxiety, if you like, of just, what am I getting myself into? Because, you really are embarking on something where, there's an obligation behind it. So it's just because you've always got the option of, you can put things up for sale or whatever, but it's a very different dynamic then.
Right.
because the other great thing about Patreon, which I think is should be mentioned more, is that it really does provide a lot more of a community and support. Because I mean, just in general, I never would have got into 3D printing and designing for 3D printing if it wasn't for all the feedback that I had from people over the years. So joining communities of other designers and discussing those things and getting such great feedback from people who are printing things is the thing that keeps you going, really. So like you were saying, critiquing people's prints, I just get blown away by some of the stuff that I see, because my prints tend to be fairly rudimentary. I bought, I got my first 3D printers, and I spent all the time modding them and tweaking slicer settings and getting everything perfect. I don't do that anymore. Now I press buttons and print and go, it's good enough. And I tell myself I'm testing default settings because I want things to be printable.
Right.
But it means that I see other people's prints of my designs, and it's just mind-blowing the quality that some people get. Especially since I've got a couple of cheap printers that are just unmodified default slicer settings that I use for just making sure things are printable and to try to identify issues that might come up using untweaked settings and so on. Nice. But that does mean that I look at my things and go, well, I wish it was a bit nicer. But I can always go print it on the Prusa or something if I really want to, but there's probably already something printing on that.
Yeah, right. Well,
and I gotta say, I was gonna say, you were also my first Patreon. Patreon subscription, and I reached out to you like a little giddy girl. I was like, you're my first, thank you. But then I went into your library, and I had a couple people asked where they can find your stuff, and there's a link in the description below. I believe to your Patreon, and your website, I believe, takes you to you can go to your Patreon through your website, but everything can be found on the Patreon page. And the best thing about your Patreon page is you allow anybody who jumps in and becomes a Patreon, right, to have access to your catalog backwards too. So what I loved about that is I jumped in, I grabbed a tier, I went to Dropbox because that's where you put your stuff, right? And I'm just like, oh my God. There's so much there.
I don't know where it all came from. I just blinked and suddenly it was all there. It was
I went back and forth between your Patreon and your Dropbox trying to figure out what you called things in your posts so I could go figure out what you named them, and you have such a huge library of stuff. If anybody wants to check it out, I highly suggest it. There's a new feature I just heard about today where you can actually pay ahead for a year, so you don't have to deal with the monthly installments. I did see that. Yeah, I haven't looked at it. I haven't done it, and I haven't looked at it, but I think I'm gonna let my patrons know as well, some of which you were watching and are probably shaming me for how much you put out and how much I don't. So I'm sorry. I'll do more, I promise. This is my come to Jesus moment. But
I'm holding one of your opinion boxes here, and I got two things that I really love about all the stuff you do. One, that the way you embrace modular design. So for the pinion box, there's all kinds of different base sizes depending on what you might want to put in this box. But the other really neat thing is that you do such a good job of making really interesting stuff that makes fantastic gifts for people. Like I've actually printed out some of your stuff, and I made a card holder and some other things, and it's not hard to get creative and give somebody something kind of unique. And so there's a lot of value in that regard. And I think what's also unique that I like is you actually offer a tier where people can do your stuff commercially, right? Yeah,
well, I had a lot of requests for that sort of thing. So, well, actually, I can't even say that was my idea. I stole that from a fellow designer who said, you should just do this. Oh, okay, that works. Yes.
You've already taken the time to do the design, and it's good, and it's a win-win because it gets your stuff out there. It's your brand, because this is
win-win win-win is a really good phrase to use. I find that 3D printing in general is just such a positive community, and it's really easy to have situations where it's just a big group hug. It's just everyone supports everyone else. It's such a positive, relatively ego-free place. It's really interesting compared to a lot of other circles. 3D printing is just full of people just nerding out about cool stuff.
Amen. For sure. And we have like a amazing community behind HotMakes, and they tag us. If you ever see any of your stuff with the hashtag HotMakes, that's what it's for, because when they tag that, we see it and we throw it on the show. So a ton of your stuff gets on the show.
Almost weekly, your stuff. So,
See, this is where I mentioned being terrible on socials. I try to post, but I miss probably 3 out of every 4 things that have me tagged. Or
you're making awesome stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I mean,
I'll take it as a good thing. It's a good problem to have.
Right.
We have.
But I just feel sorry because people post these things, and I really love recognizing that. So.
We definitely, I mean, in the community, like you said, none of us would really be here without this community. I mean, this community is absolutely amazing. We have over 130 people from the community watching right now. And it's, one of our biggest shows. So, I mean, and this is episode 28, and, they're tuning in because they love your stuff. And what's really cool is that not everybody gets a chance to hear it from you. Like, when you said open SCAD, people freaked out in the chat there for a minute. Like,
it's the best. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's so useful. It's
my brain exploded because I couldn't stare at that. But
parametric design, it sounds like you do a lot of parametric work and stuff like that. Open SCAD really shines there. Fusion's got
totally.
Too.
Fusion does, but I just abuse Fusion. I don't use it the way it should be used. And Fusion is great if you have a plan. If you want to do things parametrically and plan things out and do it properly, that's fine. But I tend to do things and go, let me just like chop that bit in half and add this bit of it. And by the end of it, there's no way. I mean, changing things involves just backtracking down the timeline and tweaking something and go, oh, that was bad. Let's fix that.
Well, we can have the timeline. I mean, I came up on Tinkercad too, and so I was the same thing. It's just like, I'll just chop it. A lot of Booleans, right? A lot of combined.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But hey, at the end of the day, it works, and you've got just such the way your mind must work to come up with these concepts is just. Right. It's really fascinating to behold.
Well, that's another interesting point. I do think it's important to just literally dedicate time to coming up with ideas, because in any creative endeavor, I mean, the ideas are the hard part. I kind of divide it into 3. You've got the ideas, you've got the solving the design problems, and then you've got actually implementing. And the implementing bit tends to be straightforward when you're familiar with the tools and so on. And solving the design problems is the fun bit that involves reprints and iterations and so on. But coming up with the ideas is always the hardest part. And I do find that it's really useful to literally just spend time going, okay, I need to think about what could I do. It doesn't necessarily just always happen, although sometimes shower thoughts and so on lead to great ideas. But but treating ideas as treating ideation, as something that needs time dedicated to it, I think is a good thing and a useful thing, at least for me.
I gotta give a homework assignment, I think, Jim, to our audience here. If you're fascinated by print in place the way that I am, I know Jim is, and obviously Sven does a ton of work in it. Go either go on My Mini Factory or consider supporting him on Patreon. Get a Clockspring model. And then slice it and do the whole layer thing, and you will see very clearly how the mechanics of a lot of the print in place hinges and stuff work, and how you have to utilize the benefit of tapering your angles to get a proper hinge that doesn't touch but still acts as a hinge and stuff. And it's really just awesome to watch. I love just doing the slice and then working it up to see how it all comes together, because that's the beauty of it.
Right.
Well, it's all about constraints, right? You're solving problem within constraints. So in our domain, that's, what angles can we use, and, what tolerances can we use, and, everything has to fit in a certain area, and it needs to all work at once, and things can't wobble too much. And so, it's such a cool environment in which to solve problems or create problems. Just coming up with creative ways to deal with the fact that I want to create a box, but I can't have just a flat top on this thing because the whole thing will sag down. So coming up with ways around that is, I think, the fun part of 3D printing in general. So
Yeah.
Everybody's making fun of me.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say everybody's giving me a hard time. Jim's barely containing himself. Jim is fangirling. I love it. But someone did have a real question. What printers do you use?
Right. Well, I recently gave away a bunch of my old printers that needed maintenance because even in their day, they when they printed at their best, they didn't print as well as a cheap printer does now, which is crazy.
Right.
So now I've got a couple of Prusa machines which just work great. I've still got my wonderful BCN 3D Sigma that I never ever use for dual printing, but it's got the 2 independent axes. But I've got a bunch of Ender 3s that I just use for test printing, which I got specifically because people were encountering issues early on with some models and tolerances and things. So I was like, all right, I can do this. And that's the benefit of Patreon, right? You don't have to think too hard about, can I really put the money into this? So that's where that support really comes in, is this I can buy lots of filament and I can get Ender 3s and I can set things up so that it's just easy to do these sorts of test prints and just validate designs and so on. So I'm just blown away though by just the quality out of a stock Ender 3 with cheap filament. It's just go back to 2016, I would have killed for that kind of quality. I didn't have to build it. But but so I use those for validating. I've got a couple of other things lying around. There's a color mixer type printer over there that one day when I get back to Vase mode type prints, I'll pull that out again. Because that's the other thing, having enough time to, you tend to get focused on things. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of print in place, but I love Vase mode and, doing creative things and interesting, solving engineering problems with that is great. But yeah, I haven't got enough time. Well, I've got to focus my brain on something. And so at the moment, it's not that.
We did have another really good one. Do you use gear generator or draw them individually?
It varies. I don't draw. I tend to use some sort of gear generator, but whether that's an SVG thing or a Fusion plugin or whatever, it's all kind of the same. And the thing is that none of them produce things that are directly printable anyway. So the gear profiles that any gear generator produces will not have appropriate sizing to deal with tolerances and things. So no matter what you use, you're then tweaking it manually regardless. So, but there's so much out there. So it's really easy to just find a standard gear profile as an SVG, import it.
Right. Let me stay on tolerances a sec, Jim, and then we'll get to Chris's question here.
Yep.
You mentioned tolerance, and one of the things that in my designs I've discovered over the years is that it's very common with 3D printing to think like, well, hey, I'll just scale this up if I want to have a bigger one.
Yes.
When you're dealing with the mechanics like this, like when you scale up, the whole thing, the tolerances will get bigger. Oftentimes the gaps are getting bigger too. It doesn't work, right? And so that's probably where parametric is really beneficial for you, because you can lock in that tolerance. You can't just blow up the whole thing and expect it to work.
Totally, which is the number one reason why when I was doing this stuff, I did an OpenSCAD, because the tolerances are just a parameter in there and everything's built around it. Because, it's such a killer. Although, hang on, bear with me. I'm just going to grab something off a shelf up here.
Look, visual aids.
So who's loving this interview? Come on.
Things behind him.
Me. So, I did this collider cycle thing, which was something that...
What is that? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this thing was this series of things that I did along these lines was fantastically fun. I put a lot of tears into that, but then I did the huge one, which I've currently got dismantled. Hang on, let me grab a gray piece that'll expose it a bit better.
Perfect example.
But yeah, so this I printed with a 1 millimeter nozzle, and so the tolerance, it's obviously a lot more loose. It still works fine, but probably because actually, if you can see in there, the edges of this outer ring actually have a kind of a 45-degree angled sort of border on it that comes up into it, and then the cogs themselves have a matching sort of like a chamfer thing. So that really holds it in place. If I didn't have that, this would just fall apart. despite the fact it's got that herringbone in the middle. But
Right.
that would be too loose at this point. So it's only that's keeping it together. But yeah, scaling things up, obviously the issue there is that things get too loose, and occasionally, depending on the design, they may come apart. But scaling it down, obviously, has the opposite issue where things bind together. But that said, people will post versions of my stuff where they've just scaled it down to 50%, and I don't know how they get those things printed at that scale and still work. I mean, that's some really well dialed in setting stuff.
Right.
Because I sometimes, do I have an example around here? There was something that I scaled down. I think it was like that Vault box or something. I think I managed to print it at about 65% successfully, and then 60% just was all bound together. But again, I don't take the time to tweak my settings at all. So I use default slicing settings, and so it's no surprise if I don't get optimal results. But that said, something like the Prusa, just you get such great results with the default settings anyway, because it's all tuned.
Good bang for your buck there. And even the Ender, like you're saying these days, I mean, it's just such a amazing difference what a couple of years has made in terms of what you can do for your money.
Yeah,
and the Ender 2 V2 or Ender 3 V2, I mean, people are getting some just fantastic prints now of that one.
Yeah, and they're so cheap. I mean, compared to a couple of years ago, what a bottom end printer would have cost. It's amazing what you get for the money, which is fantastic. It makes it really easy to tell people to go buy a 3D printer and not have to think, but be prepared.
Well, and Chris over at Practical Printing asked a little while ago, do you plan on doing anything print in place for resin?
I did play around with that a bit. I own a resin printer, but I lent it to a friend, and it's kind of on indefinite loan because I just don't have the time to play around with it. There do seem to be some complexities around that I'm not entirely across, but a couple of people have tried printing some of my stuff, some of the FDM stuff in resin, and encountered some interesting binding in parts using, I think, those with transparent resins. But suffice to say that there are other considerations that need to be made. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I mean, that said, you can always do assemblies.
And I haven't had the opportunity to do a lot of resin work, but I'm curious with some of the print and place stuff, if they having curing issues potentially where your joints are.
Totally. Yeah. I think there's all sorts of complexities there, and I don't know. At the moment, I don't have any plans to really explore that any further. But famous last words.
Sure. You get bored eventually and need to find something new. Exciting.
I got a bunch of bottles of resin sitting on the other side of the room from me, staring at me accusingly right now.
Nice. So I don't know how many HotMakes we're gonna get to, but I have to bring this in real quick while we're out here. And what this is a post that I did the other day when we announced that you were going to be on the show.
Yeah.
And what I did was I asked people to throw out their prints. So let's check out some of your models that people have 3D printed and go through that. So of course, Steven, the Lightspeed, right?
I've got a soft spot for any of the geometric models anyway, but that is just fantastic. Look at that.
Yeah. I mean, and he does a ton of them, and his stuff comes out just fantastic. And there was a couple of people you'll see here that went back and forth pretty good as far as throwing their model. Oh, he's got one. Let's see it.
Oh, that one.
Look at that.
Nice.
This is the largest one that's still assembled that I've got. There was that huge one that couldn't stay put together.
Kathy O'Malley jumped in.
Kathy does great stuff.
And yeah, she did like a little glasses case, and of course, a little picture of her. She's printing something now there.
I think
there we go.
I love that. She actually did her own version of things to hold the tops together that was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And this is one of the other things I love is that you've got practical prints combined with artistic. It's and fantastic examples of capabilities of 3D printing. I mean, I think the reason you're so successful is where a lot of things combine and you give a lot of utility to people and value.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, the utility is just an excuse to play with the creative side. So it's like, okay, this is a starting point, and now we can, it's really about the proportions and the thicknesses and the shapes, but it's in the form of something useful.
Right. This is another Stephen the Lightspeed print. His little filament.
Is that a palette print?
I don't think so.
Filament. He just looks like he was using up remnants.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
just
There's another one.
That's beautiful. Some people's ability to do color pairing is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, the colors on that are just great.
And he's crazy on this. He copied me on this one.
Gee, look how clean that is.
Oh, I love that one.
None of mine are that clean.
So I did this in let's see, where's my thing here? There we go. I did it in copper.
Ooh, that's nice too.
And it it came out super good. And this was straight off an Ender 3 V2, a little funkiness on the bottom there, but straight off I believe the Ender 3 V2 stock profile.
See, that's just amazing that's just straight out of a printer like that.
And oh man,
look at that. And that was one of those designs that I threw in. I have my end of month posts where I'll post the things that didn't quite work out or I'd abandoned or whatever. And those drawers were intended to be one of them, but people print these things.
There's another one.
That's very nice.
I love the style.
Yeah.
It reminds me of just like the futuristic.
Well, I love that kind of slightly retro futuristic, industrial sort of style. Oh, that's a really cool holder.
Yeah, that's the one. I think you put like nuts and bolts in, right?
Yeah,
that's really cool. Very nice. Oh, neat. I haven't seen another one where someone's differentiated the skull bit from the rest of it.
Right.
I'll see that's not a bit of software. I'm a terrible ZBrush user as well. I'm by no means skilled at that, but Photos Mint, another great designer, occasionally tries to coach me on my ZBrush skills.
Oh, this is Paul.
That's cool.
We get Paul. He does. I think he's an Aussie too, isn't he? He does the 3D printed speakers.
Yes, I've actually got. Funny you should say that, because I've actually got one of his designs here waiting for parts to arrive from China. But shipping is problematic globally right now.
Yeah.
I think shipping's bad everywhere.
It is. I've long since stopped being concerned about shipping times. Things just arrive when they arrive.
Gets there when it gets there, right? So I got to ask, and I'm sure other people are curious too. Do you personally have an all-time favorite of what you've been?
Look, I was actually thinking about that because it seemed like a good question, and I couldn't find it. But one that I keep coming back to is the one called the linkage crate, where it had like a paddle at the front that flipped the lid up, and it's just something about the different ratios of movements that I just.
Is it this one?
Oh no, not that. Oh, I forgot about that one. No, this one.
I forgot. It was like, I forgot about that one.
I was looking through storage boxes of prints earlier, and there were so many things that I'd forgotten I made. Oh, that one, that was great. I
feel like Joel did the linkage crate when you're talking.
Probably, yeah. It's but it's one where I wish I'd found it now, but I didn't at a quick glance. I mean, the easy answer is to say I always like the last thing I did, but it's more about it's not so much about the end result as about the process that it took me to get there that tends to stick in my mind. So I really like the things that were difficult but satisfying and worked out. So things like the various ones along these lines. There are a couple of different variations where we had that thing there. It just worked out so cleanly and so neatly. Eventually, when I can turn things the right direction looking at camera.
Nice.
That and all of the collider cycles, of course. The things that were difficult to do but got there in the end. Yeah, those are the ones that I tend to remember fondly.
it's got to be really rewarding when you have multiple iterations and then finally you get the one that clicks and you're like, yes, right? Like,
well, especially since I mentioned I have that kind of, I tend to have the end of month thing where I have the disasters and it didn't work out. And it'll often be, it'll be like the 20th of the month and I'll have had something that I've been printing. Oh, yes, that thing. That I don't actually have a successful print of that myself. It was just such a
print of your own print.
No, I every print I did of that, test print I did of that, ended up coming off. And since I designed for relatively achievable printing, I ended up just putting it aside. And that thing, if anything goes wrong with it, the whole thing is just dead.
Steven said it took him 3 tries.
So I put it up anyway.
Finally, in carbon fiber PETG and a texture bed on the Prusa, finally printed. And 3 tries.
It's a completely ridiculous design. It's got 2 different planetary gears that mesh together, and there's a screw through the middle, and it's a completely over-engineered thing intentionally to just be an adjustable angle phone stand. And it was really pushing the boundaries on ridiculousness to the point where I put up some photos and said this was it, but it was a disaster. And of course some people said, hey, can I get the file? Why not? And I didn't even know if it would actually work in reality, because it was one of those things especially the screw part through the middle. I didn't know whether those parts would have enough play in them to match up properly, and so apparently it worked. But I literally don't have a print of that myself.
So challenge of the week.
But
if you can get your hands on this challenge of the week, if you can get your hands on this file, if you go to Patreon, you join, you reach out to Sven, get your hands on the file. Challenge of the week. Next week, tag us and we will post your picture of this first during HotMakes, because as far as I know, there's 2 that printed. I know there's one more out here. I think someone printed. There's another one. The Kathy O'Malley.
Frankenstein's monsters table that he would tip up when he's alive. He gets struck by lightning and the tips. I don't know why that the way that design looked. Always
right.
That's
nice. And I thought someone responded. Someone else said, "Oh, you got wow, look at this. Kathy and Steven the Lightspeed probably keep you in business because
bigger
every single month.
Those 2, Kathy and Steven, both just do such great things too. Look at that. That's so cool.
That is phenomenal, yeah. But I swear I got to find it. Maybe I will by the end of the episode. In here somewhere, someone else posted their version of that phone stand.
I can't think there was at least 2.
Yeah, and I don't remember where, but I'll keep looking while we're talking. But I was
going to say before, just to finish my thought before.
Yeah.
I'll often get later in the month, and there'll be something that I've been printing with issues for the last 2 weeks, and I'll just be thinking this is just going to end up I'll take photos of these disasters because they're going to go in the end of month post, and then finally I'll have success and it'll be as printable and as workable as I wanted it to be, and there's a palpable sense of relief when because you don't want to abandon something when you've spent so much time and you had such great ideas about something and you're a little bit invested. It's a bit dispiriting to think maybe this just isn't going to get there, but when it does, it's great. There was a good example of that.
We have a feature in our show that we do. So we have hot makes, but we also have hot messes that we include to post as well, because it makes everybody feel better that it doesn't always turn out perfect. And a lot of times the process is the journey is what makes you better and understand how to get better results. So it's important for people to see that, you don't always just get this great stuff right off the bat.
Well, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. It's and like you said, it's about the journey. It's not just about how do I get this thing. It's the whole process, and that's why we all have 3D printers rather than we could go down to the shops and buy a plastic box if that's all we wanted.
Well,
and it wouldn't have layer lines.
Right.
Airlines are beautiful.
Feel free to drop your your failures out there, and tag them as hashtag HotMakes and then hot mess, because we love to see what your first iterations happens on your first iterations. But let's see what we got here. We got, let's say, do you guys mind going a few minutes early? We were a little bit late to start. So is that okay if we go 5 minutes over? Okay. Do we want to jump into any of the hot makes, or should we save them for next week? What do you think, Pooch?
Let's pick a couple because I want to get Sven's reaction to some of the things that are doing.
All right. Let's do it. I mean, first.
Oh, Steph's died. Got dropped.
There we go.
Disconnected. All right, Steph's died.
No, it's my bad. I pulled us all out on accident. What I meant to do is this. So what I was saying is Steph did some amazing dice like always, and
that is so cool,
man. So the first, go ahead.
So are they resin?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
She is the master of resin. Every time, it's like what you just said. It's like every time she releases a new one, it's like, oh no, that one's my favorite. Like her, like flame effects, and she's walked through like what her mold making process is. It's really neat. But she's a true dye artisan.
Yeah, and this is actually a keyboard key.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, no, obviously.
So,
it's very cool.
And then we get a lot of cool stuff. Let's see. I think we saw this one. I might have pulled this one on accident, but that's okay. Yep.
Very famous. That was on Vase mode. You can do that in Vase mode.
You can. We had that discussion. I believe some people say do it in Vase mode. Some people say don't.
Yeah, I mean, as a math nerd, that just pushes all my buttons. But,
Right.
So let's see what we got next here. Oh yeah, look at that.
It's so clean.
I mean,
is it an editing wheel?
Yep,
Like
it's a video deck, right?
Video deck. Nice.
Yep. But what's super cool is people are taking, like you were talking about, 3D printing, dropping their own designs in and coming up with stuff like this, and that is awesome. Unlike me, who just prints stuff.
Purpose keys, or it looks like they might have robbed a key actually off of a keyboard, or are they?
Probably.
Like, regular keys, don't they?
So,
yeah.
If there's anything wrong with that? That's
nope,
just...
not at all.
Good mix. Oh, there's the Ecto.
Oh, here's the Ecto. Let's see. They were saying thanks, banana for scale.
So I was going to say that banana is actually a really useful piece of scale there. Yeah. I would have never known otherwise.
Yes, definitely. And we have a couple of people, actually. Matthew, the guy who gave me the Starlord mask, is making one, I believe, 1/8 scale. He can correct me if I'm wrong. It is huge right now, and I think Jerry from 3D Printing and Painting is making another big one as well. So that's going to be awesome. If you haven't seen this model, go check out this model is phenomenal, and they are doing some sweet stuff with it.
That's a graphics model, is that right?
I have to go back. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Anyway, it's an amazing model. Matt, it's time to eat that banana, though.
Yeah.
I love that model. That is just the best.
Yeah, this is another fun one.
That's just fantastic.
So good.
It's just such a good take on that idea. It's fantastic.
Oh, let's see.
The Alien Queen.
Is it bad to tag yourselves? No, it's not. So this is
stuff like this. Look at that.
Yeah. I believe these were from the 1440 Makers stream, right? I think these were some of the models from that stream.
Yes, they were.
And I've printed these in resin, but I've never seen them like this. So that's pretty awesome. Nice work, Old Curmudgeon. I think that you're in the chat, so nice work. What do we got next? I'm trying to go through a little quick, so that way we get through them all. But here's we know it's Photos Mint Batman series models. Let's just jump in. There's a little Joker.
Photos Mint is just a master of detail.
Isn't it incredible?
And doing everything properly.
Yeah, well, and it's as a different art form too. Like you said, like ZBrush isn't your thing, but like I think I guess I don't want to speak to it. I'm assuming he was using ZBrush here, but maybe
yes, he is a ZBrush wizard.
He's just a master. It's incredible.
Yeah, and you can check these out on his Patreon. Man, nice work. Love the colors too. The color choice was great, Jordan.
Great. This is what sculpting in the modern age is.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. We think pretty. Let's see. What did I? Oh, this was a nozzle design. Man.
Tabletop units designed to be set up and portable printer.
Huh. Look at that. I'll have to. It's on Hackaday. We'll have to jump into this. Maybe we'll do like an article just on this one week because this looks pretty sweet.
Yeah,
But I don't know if we have time to read an article.
Let's come back to that one.
Yeah.
On the
We'll
deep-
create that. Graffiti. There we go. Ecto one. Let's see. It's by right here. One. What is that? One.
That's right. He did the paint job on it, right? So
Yes.
Graphit's
Let's see. Look at this.
That's fantastic.
Look at the whole diorama, man. He's got
Yeah, I
the,
was about to say. That's great.
it's incredible. Look at the detail inside. That's I don't
Matthew,
have
Matthew better bring his A game on his giant one. Now we're looking at the. I mean, no.
he brings his A game on everything. You know?
Yeah, he does, but he gets it done in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Nice work. This was pretty cool. Chris Warcucky did a little video on this fluid bed. Let's see. I'm gonna make this full screen and we'll hit play. So he I don't know if you can hear it, but
Yes,
That's
Ben,
how
have you seen familiar with the fluid bed? Yeah, I don't know if you saw Mark Rober's thing where he took a hot tub, filled it with sand, and then put compressed air in the bottom to make that fluid bed design.
yeah. So now he's just going to be increasing the air here, and he says you'll see it start fluffing, and then
That's the key is getting that mixture of air
right.
And you can just like drop stuff in there.
There we go. It's the volume's increasing. This is awesome.
It's so cool to watch. It's too bad it's pixelated like this because it doesn't.
Yeah, it must be because I blew it up. Let's see.
It's still pretty cool even at that resolution though.
Yeah. But isn't it wild to see like a powder, turned to looks like a little bit.
Nice. That's
And
so
then
cool.
his application is he's been using it to do fishing lures and actually provide is it like a powder coat type effect where he's just trying to get an even distribution of like a paint that he bakes, or somebody's got to give me more. I want more details on that.
Well, I know he's been making
really
a lot of fishing lures. What was that?
I was just saying that's a really interesting way to use that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Using it for just distributing things evenly is that's clever.
Yeah.
Someone says he's using it for his beard. Yeah, his beard. But it's for powder coating stuff. That's awesome. All right, Jordan, another Mad Monkey. Look at this.
Amazing.
Man, this is another Photos Mint print, and
Yes.
just phenomenal.
This is FDM, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
It looks like it's on the Anycubic Predator at 200%. That's pretty awesome. Another fox from Luby.
Luby always does good.
We've seen like 5 of these foxes now, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah. Very nice.
Hey, we only got a couple more, so we'll hammer them. Let's see. Oh man, Tom Jackson here. The Ghoul Head by Photos Mint, of course. I mean,
That's just great.
yeah. What do you say?
So good.
Just
in time for Halloween. I love it. Oh,
But this one he actually painted.
yeah.
Which hey, normally we see his multicolor stuff.
It's, that's pretty good.
That's awesome.
I didn't think I'd ever seen anything that Tom had painted, or I wasn't paying attention before. He's known for his MMU work. Sven, do you have a multi-material unit for any of your proofs?
No. I occasionally contemplate getting an MMU or a palette or something, but like I said, I already have a Sigma with 2 carriages that I don't use for multi-material anyway. So at some point I'll probably get around to that sort of thing. But everyone else prints my stuff that way anyway. Oh, actually, I did have a request a while back for delivering designs in a way that's more conducive to MMU stuff, so that you can differentiate the parts and print them with different filaments. So I will start doing that.
Nice. So this one right here, Jordan, Mad Monkey, another one says, "Yep, I screamed too." You ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh no!
Oh man,
That is a multicolor print. That probably took a whole lot of time, judging by that tower there.
a lot of cool changes. Yeah.
And yeah, so we'll call that a hot mess, right?
It failed.
Yeah, that failed.
But does it, any idea what?
He's
so horribly wrong.
He's probably in the chat. What happened?
Looks like it got right to the visor.
Yeah,
it just had a hard time changing to whatever color you had on the visor there. Interesting.
I mean, it's multi-material, so all bets are off anyway.
Well, I wonder, hey Jordan, did you end up doing just like a chop and then print the bottom? And because it looks like you might have an inconspicuous enough seam right there where you could actually gloop your way past that, but I don't know.
MMU load failure is what he said there.
Yeah, bummer.
Ouch. All right. Ooh, you like candies? Look at that.
Nice.
This is
that is just the best pumpkin expression ever. How good is that?
I like that it's a little canted too. That's a good,
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what's happening with Halloween this year, but it's like if you're going to leave the bowl out on the porch or whatever, that's a good one to do.
right.
I mean, I love prints that don't take themselves too seriously like that.
Yeah.
And like the ghoul head just before. Prints that are just a bit fun without being too overboard. Just enough that it's very clear that somebody was just having fun designing the thing. Maybe I'm biased there.
Giving you a hard time, Pooch. So hey, if you leave this on your porch for a month after Halloween, it won't rot. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Yeah. You know what? I didn't even look at this, to be honest. I threw it in here, but this is wow, that's loud. This is a spool.
Actual spool making machine.
Yeah.
This is how they do the Prusiments, man.
Oh wow.
That's how they press the spools together and get them ready to go.
Right. That's so cool.
Yeah. They got a lot of nifty little custom machines there. I was lucky enough to go to the shop last summer, and they've got a neat machine that does it cuts all their PTFE tube, and does the bevel on the edges, and it's a really talented engineers there.
Nice.
It will surprise no one to hear that I love the hexagon design in their tools. they're the nicest ones, I think.
No.
Although, I mean, spool artistry doesn't really seem to be a big thing anyway. There was a local company here for a while that had local artists do just visual design on their spools, but they are no longer in business. So
the hex design's got a lot of practicality to it too. I love that you always have somewhere where you can end the spool when you put it back on there and just zip it through the hex. And
totally agree.
Yeah.
So this was the ERF, the Electronic Repulse Rifle F Series. This person met Shay from Shay Street, right? At ERF in 2019, and they kind of talked about this, and this is a really cool. If you don't know this, in the description of this video below, there's a Google Doc. You can go there, and all the links from tonight are on there that we're looking at. But we'll have to jump into this one again when we have more time to actually dive into this, because this is a really cool build that he did as well. But just looking at the actual build itself is really. It's quite cool that he designed all this.
Yeah, we'll do a deep dive on that one.
Yeah, definitely. And last but not least, there we go. Chris Travis Zombie Bowl. It's a Wexter Zombie Bowl. I love it.
It's the one that Mad Monkey was eating Jello out of. I swear to God, he was sitting on his porch just eating Jello. I'm pretty sure it was out of that thing.
Well, like Indiana Jones style.
Yeah.
That would be phenomenal. Like some red Jello in there. Throw some fruit in there for for the heck of it. Hey, speaking of that, have you guys seen the tweets that are going around? Everybody's doing those. What the heck are they? Are they Yoda zombies or are they Gremlin zombies?
I haven't. Both sound amazing. I haven't seen this.
No, that's a HotMake. Nice. I'm gonna have to. I know a bunch of people tagged them for this week, so we'll have to show it next week for sure because we're getting a lot closer to Halloween. But they're everybody's throwing them out there, and they're doing they're all printing them and painting these things. And someone out there can correct me because I'm scrolling through Twitter frantically trying to find it. It's been blowing up my Twitter feed. Now I can't find one, right? But everybody's doing these things and they're printing like this whole series, and it's so cool. It's like Freddy and Jason and like all the we'll see it next week, I promise.
Awesome.
Oh man, now I can't find it, so I'm scrolling. I'm like 30 seconds into scrolling and I still can't find it. But I know we're a little bit over time. I do have to say thank you so much for taking some time for us in your first interview of something like this, man. We can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, really appreciate having you on. Looking forward to all the great stuff that you have still to come. Thank you for all you've done, and keep up the good work, my man.
I will try.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a? Oh,
is that a tease?
Wait.
It's an old version of something. I've got an updated version of this printing right now that's a little bit more involved.
That was going to be my very last question. Is there anything you can tease us with before we go? And then you pulled out this.
This is something that's it's been elaborated on a bit. So the next version is somewhat more interesting than that. I mean, I don't know how excited you get about Post-it note holders, but someone requested that caddy system. Mysterious threaded bolts. Could be for anything. And
could be for anything.
work in progress, but a tape holder for the caddies.
Nice.
So the only thing is, though, that I tried 3D printing a blade, right? So I had it. It's not really focusing there, but it's, as you can see, it prints flat, try to get the sharpest edge possible, but it's not practical to print that. So I ended up grabbing a roll of cling wrap and cutting a part of the inbuilt blade off that and then slotting that in there, and it kind of works. So it's still a work in progress.
Nice.
Well, you have a lot of irons in the fire at any given time then.
Oh, always. It's a pipeline, I guess. There's always stuff in design, stuff in test printing it's an ongoing process, and it's my mind is always around, okay, now when can I start this so that it'll be, ready in time for me to look at the results and get another thing printing before I go to bed the next night or whatever. Just, when something is like, a 17-hour print, you're thinking, how can I maximize my number of iterations? Because when things finish at 3 a.m, that's just wasted hours. So it's like, I'll print this other shorter thing on that printer first.
Oh,
man. It's a problem that's also easily solved by just adding more printers, which I keep doing as well.
Good. Matthew says he needs a Clockspring wall safe. If you want to work on that, we can do it, full size. But now what I learned at the end of the stream here was that I'm going to have a desk full of utensils to use for my sticky notes and my tape and whatever else you release pretty soon. So there's that. But again, thank you so much for coming on. We definitely appreciate the time, and I know it's been a long road to get here, but you're super busy, and an hour of your time means the world to us. So thank you so much for that.
It's been a ton of fun. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, hang out right there. Everybody else, thank you guys for coming. This has been just an amazing show. The questions, the engagement for the community has been awesome. I've been trying to watch both at the same time and mostly focusing on Sven because, why not? And throwing some stuff up there. Clockspring, Voltron, everybody's still throwing stuff out there. But thank you guys for coming and checking us out every Monday night, 6 p.m. Central, right here on The Edge of Tech. Check out HotMakes. Watch all of them. Go back, and this will be in the playlist as well. But otherwise, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Keep later, everybody. Have a good night.
Oh, let's see. Should I hit a button? Maybe a button?
Do it.
Oh, Sven, you haven't seen this one. You ready for this?
What am I saying?